we're live.
Okay. Oh. Check. Coming through okay?
Yeah, good to go.
G'day everybody, welcome to Pints with Aquinas. My name's Matt Fradd, obviously, and I have just spent the last month off of the internet, and now I am back, and I'm really excited to be back. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do. We've got a ton of great content coming up. But in this episode, I just wanted to update you about all that went on in August. Plus, I got a couple of big announcements I want to make. And then towards the end, we'll take some of your questions. So thanks for being here. And thank you for being here, Neil.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, the other thing Neil's going to be doing is sharing with me how many video clips? Neil.
I think there's like 7 total.
Oh, wow.
It's just kind of a list of things that happened in August online that Matt may have missed.
Yes.
Controversial, some not. So.
All right, so Neil has chosen these videos. I know what some of them are, but not all of them. But I haven't watched the clips, so I look forward to watching them and reacting, as it were. But yeah, big thanks to everybody who's watching right now. I had a really wonderful month offline. My last interview was with Father John Parks, and I gave Neil my computer and my phone.
Very ceremonial.
Very ceremonial. Yeah, it felt good. And last year I had a dumb phone, but for this month I thought I don't want to have anything, like no phone at all. So I actually had no phone, at least for the first 12 days. But then my wife's life got increasingly hard because everybody was texting her. Is everything okay?
Yeah, they're saying my mic's not loud.
Oh, okay. And then everybody was texting her, and my wife's like, hey, like, could you just maybe not do this as hardcore? So I got a dumb phone again. But it was so terrific. Now, I said to myself that I was going to read the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis, and I read the first one. What's it called? Out of a Silent Planet. Have you read the trilogy?
I have not. No.
So I read the first one, and I read that in about 5 days and decided I don't like it. So I stopped reading them. And I heard that Tolkien and others said that, what was the second one called? Not A Hideous Strength, but Paralandra was his best. But I read the first couple, and I didn't like it. I just don't like C.S. Lewis when he does fiction. I feel like I have my elbows up against an allegory he's bound to make. So whenever I'm reading, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like this represents the angels, and I didn't like it. So I stopped reading that.
Bill Donaghy's in chat.
Is he?
And he's angry at me.
Yeah, Bill kind of convinced me to read it. This is after I gave it a shot, but I didn't like it. So why keep reading stuff you don't want to read? So I put that down. And what did I read after that? I've been reading The Hobbit to my son, who just loves it. Every night he's begging me to read it to him. We're almost done that. I was reading Russian fairy tales to my kids. I was reading Jeeves and Wooster stories to my wife and kids. I don't know if you ever read that, but that's some of the greatest comedic fiction out there. What else did I read? So I read this really, not a great novel. I mean, these are kind of just easy to read novels. Tex Murphy was a video game I played when I was a kid. Loved it. And it turns out that there are books associated with these different games. So I read Under a Killing Moon, and I read The Poisoned Pawn. What else did I do? Oh, somebody, a fella here, Jacob, gave me a book, The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway. Have you read that?
Heard of it.
Dude, it was beautiful. It was so lovely. I cry, not easily, but when I cry, it's, the floodgates open. So I was in Georgia with my wife because we were celebrating our 16th wedding anniversary, and I was having a cigar out on the patio of this Airbnb, and I closed that book, and my wife had walked out for the last couple of pages or whatever, or several pages. I had to walk inside and just cry. It moved me a great deal. I don't know about y'all, but like, I hate when people see me when I feel vulnerable. Maybe we're all like that. Like my wife, if she's sick and she's throwing up, she wants me behind her, rubbing her back. When I'm throwing up, I don't want anybody in the house. And it's like that when I cry. Like if I'm like moved by something and I start to cry, I don't want anybody looking at me. So there's that. Oh, I see. Yeah, your microphone's not even plugged in.
Apparently. I tested it. I think one of the cables is just being weird.
No worries.
Keep fiddling for a little bit.
Or you could just start screaming and my mic will pick you up.
Everybody.
Yeah. So anyways, it was a really, really great month off. You know what? One of the best things about this month off, honestly, was not knowing and not caring what not Donald Trump, who's our president? This is how far removed I am. Joe Biden had to say or didn't say or tried to say and failed at saying. I don't know what Pope Francis did say or didn't say. I have no idea what's going on with kind of national or ecclesial politics. And it turns out that the world didn't need me to know what was going on in order to survive. Isn't that amazing? I thought I had to be kept abreast with every single thing that was happening as it was happening, or else the world would implode. But it turns out everyone was fine with me not knowing these things. And this brings me back to a conversation I had with Father John Parks about our sphere of influence and our sphere of concern. So you think of like these two circles. You have the circle of influence and the circle of concern.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt, but can everybody hear me now?
Can everybody hear Neil?
Hello?
Dun, dun, dun,
We'll wait for chat.
dun.
You can keep talking. Sorry. Your sphere of influence, right?
No, you're good. Let's see. Let's wait. Let's make them pay for not commenting quicker. Maybe you like... What's happening? Come on, people.
I think there's just a delay, man.
We don't train 3 times a week for this. Okay, well, you tell me if they can hear.
Yeah.
So this idea that you have this circle of influence and the circle of concern, and for most of us, like our circle of concern is way bigger than our circle of influence. And if you spend all of your intellectual energy on the circle of concern, your circle of influence shrinks. And so if all I'm doing is listening to Ben Shapiro clips and whatever, Matt Walsh clips, and just shaking my head about how insane the world is, but I'm not actually engaging on a deep level with my wife and children and friends and community, that's not a good thing. So I felt like this month was a really good example of what happens when you focus on your sphere of influence. It was just a profound month. But I have to say, I'm glad to be back, because last month I didn't want to come back ever again. Is it working?
Yeah, we're good to go. Thank you, everybody, for saying yes.
Last year, I don't know if you remember, I came back online. I was actually thinking about getting rid of email. Mm-hmm. Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
And my car. There was a moment where I was like, maybe I should get rid of my car. But this year, I'm just so pumped to be back in the saddle, in the proverbial saddle. So there's that. What else did I get up to? I don't know. There was a lot of sitting. There's a lot of drinking coffee.
Maybe perhaps smoking cigars?
Yep. Oh, cigars. So here, we got a big announcement, everybody. Are you ready for the big announcement? Here it is. So let me just kind of give you some context, right? So Steubenville, Ohio, where I live, is and has been for a few decades or more, a rather run-down town. But there is this desire on the part of the locals, of which I now am, to revive it. And so I'm on the main street here in Steubenville called 4th Street. And I'm told that 10 years ago, you wouldn't even come down 4th Street. It was kind of dangerous. Well, a local fella here, wonderful guy, started a coffee shop on the 4th Street called Leonardo's. And that's really revivified downtown. And it's kind of like the heartbeat of Steubenville now. And so many of us have been talking about starting some other businesses downtown and reviving this place. The good news about being in Steubenville is you can buy a house or a building for the price of a VCR, like a top-of-the-range VCR, but a VCR nonetheless. And so I'm proud to announce that a few friends of mine here in Steubenville and myself are starting a cigar lounge. And it's going to be up and running next month. We're putting a ton of work into it. And let me show you the logo. I know there's been a lot of controversy about the logo. People don't like it, or people love it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. It's going to be called Chesterton and Company Cigars. Now, we came up with the idea last year, which is why it says established in 2021. I think that's when we filed. Leave it up for a bit, would you? I think it's cool. But really, we'll probably change that to 2022. But on October 7th, next month, we're having a big street party here in Steubenville for Oktoberfest, and that will be the day that we open Chesterton and Co. cigars. And so if you live in the area, or even if you don't, fly into Steubenville, have a cigar with us. I want to show you some photos of the place, because it's really crazy how we've renovated it. Ah, yes, that's me standing in front of a giant cutout of Australia.
We're going to switch to the other camera too, Matt. So
okay, yeah, you got it. Right, so there's that. It didn't look like that to begin with, but they, I think, out of love for me, cut it into that.
Yeah, Rob told me it was kind of shaped like Australia, so he kind of finessed it the rest of the way.
So look at this. So we're renovating it right now. Now, here's what's really cool. This actually used to be a cigar lounge called Diamond Square Cigars, and I'm not making this up. Back in the day, Dean Martin, the singer, worked at this cigar lounge. We actually, I don't have a photo on me right now, but we do have the photo, so whenever I have it, I'm going to throw it up. But that's beautiful. Now, look at this ceiling. So we actually restored the 100-year-old ceiling. It had drop ceiling. Can you believe that? Actually, there's another photo somewhere in here where I've shown the drop ceiling, maybe.
Let me see if I can find it.
Or maybe not. But anyway, so we've we're renewing that. That's us working on the humidor. The humidor is huge. It's 14.5 feet tall, and will be able to fit approximately 10,000 cigars. We've got medical grade 3-stage filtration, so you're not going to be sitting with a bunch of smoke in your face. And see if you can show them the hardwood floors, because we actually had to tear up 5 layers, count them,
oh my gosh,
5 layers of shag carpet and tile until we got to these hardwood floors.
They're beautiful, though. They need a polish for sure. But.
Yeah, we're actually in the process now of redoing them. But I'm so excited. Neil, if you could put chestertoncigars.com in the description, people can click that. We're going to have a store next year. But for now, you can follow us on Instagram. So if you go to Chesterton Cigars, maybe you can put a link to the Instagram page as well. So if you go to chestertoncigars.com, you'll see it. And we're going to start uploading photos. But anyway, we're really excited about this, because we want to create another place where people can come together and sit. One thing I'm really excited about is there's going to be no televisions, no screens anywhere. We're going to have a piano and a violin. There's going to be live music on different nights. There's going to be live readings of Chesterton and Tolkien and different pieces of poetry. So imagine that, like Thursday night, 8 p.m., live reading of Lord of the Rings, or live reading of Orthodoxy by Chesterton or something, where we'll sit in a circle and we're not going to comment on it. It's not a book club. We're just going to read sections and smoke together. There's going to be whiskey. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so fantastic. Actually, show them that coin on the top left there. Look at that. So these are little tokens that we'll give you. Cool. So isn't that cool? Are you excited, Neil?
Yeah, I am. I've been in this space. It's really cool. I think all the revitalization. I mean, people are saying gentrification in the comments. It's really not that, because there's nothing down here. It's just nothing. Empty. Absolutely empty.
Just empty buildings, yeah.
But
and one thing I'm really excited about too is, and here's another announcement, is we want to start holding more in-person events. And one thing we're going to have coming up is a live debate. I'm going to fly up. Trent Horn and Gavin Ortland both have kind of given me a tentative yes that they'll do it. And we're hoping to host the debate in the Cigar Lounge. So if you're in Steubenville or if you're near here, you can come and watch the event, and it'll be pushed out live on Pints with Aquinas. So try and do more live events like that. So couple of things. Number one, subscribe to this channel if you haven't. We hit 270,000 subscribers while I was away, which is really exciting. Secondly, please join our free speech community over on Locals, mattfradd.locals.com, mattfradd.locals.com. I used to be on Patreon, and I still am, but Locals is just a much more enjoyable experience for everybody who's there. We do morning podcasts. Father Gregory Pine posts monthly spiritual direction videos. We're posting monthly audiobooks. We're about to post Tolkien's audiobook on fairy tales. While I was gone for 22 days, we posted a chapter, an audiobook chapter every day that we paid to record. Teresa of Avila's, what's it called?
Interior castle.
Interior castle. The other thing that you get when you become an annual supporter over on Locals, check this out, and I hold it up, maybe get rid of Chesterton for a sec, is the Gill. Ooh, this is our newspaper that we've just put out. We're working on it. We're going to make it better and better. It's huge. It's really big. But this is available if you become an annual supporter over on Locals. And after you do that, you then have to put in your address. So we'll pin that to the top for you. And then you'll just start getting these for free wherever you live. So even if you live in the Philippines or, I don't know, Namibia or Australia, we'll pay the shipping. We're just trying to make Pints with Aquinas the best it can be. We have some big plans that I don't want to tell you about right now. But in order to make this happen, we need money because all this stuff costs money. So help us out by going to mattfradd.locals.com. And I think you'll agree that you'll get even more in return than you expect. For example, I just paid Dr. Ed Fazer, who's one of the leading experts on Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways, to record a 7-part video teaching exclusive, and that'll be for my supporters. So we'll be posting that over on Locals and on Patreon in the coming week or two. So that's really exciting. You won't be able to find that anywhere else. There's a video dedicated to each of the 5 ways. So if you want to better understand Thomas Aquinas' proofs for the existence of God, go to mattfradd.locals.com.
He's the guy to ask. He's like the expert.
He's brilliant, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Mattfradd.locals.com. Sign up as an annual supporter over there for whatever amount, and you'll start getting access to all this stuff. All right.
Cool. Well, Matt, I have some
Where's my
material
water? I just had a water. What did I do with it? Did I not have a water?
Is it in front of you behind your mic?
Yep, it's right behind my mic. Good. All right. Thanks.
Where can people still get the Stein actually?
The beer stein, you can actually buy it if you go to pintswithaquinas.com. We just created a brand new website. We're putting blogs up there every week, and there's a shop. You go to the shop, you can buy it there. All right.
Okay, great. Well, I have some material that I've amassed from the month of August that you may have missed.
Okay.
Let me pull this up.
I want to be honest with people too. Like, if I know about this, I'm not going to pretend I don't.
Yep.
I saw that Dave Rubin did a back online, and I believe him when he says he hasn't known any of this, but I'm not going to pretend I don't know about it just for a fact. I'll be honest.
Do you know about Shia LaBeouf's conversion?
Yes. What I know about Shia LaBeouf is that he was on Bishop Barron's show, because I had my next door neighbor tell me I got to get him on my show. He thinks I have way more influence than I do, I think. So I haven't watched the video though, and I hear that Bishop Barron interviewed him.
Yep.
That's all I know.
That's right. Okay. Well, I'll give you a little bit of context before we play the clip. So he I think it was 2021 and 2022, there were like allegations that kind of just completely destroyed his career. So he had a sort of revival kind of what he was doing by...
Show them your beautiful face, Nick.
Yeah, sure. He made a couple movies like Peanut Butter Falcon. And
I love that movie, by the way.
And I haven't seen it. It seems
it's
really good.
Terrific. It's so
and then
charming.
I think the other one was Honey Child or something like that, but that was kind of autobiographical about his father. But then there came out some allegations against him. I think he's married too, so that's another layer on all these, but like people who he wasn't married with, allegations of like sexual abuse, physical abuse, lots of specific things you can look up if you want to that just... not, there's a reason why these things like destroyed his career. They're pretty valid, disturbing things for someone to do, especially in like a public sphere, but just in general. But then he's listening to the Barron interview, which is really good. I recommend people go listen to all of it for full context. But he was at a like super low point in his life. He basically was thinking that his career was over, wasn't even talking to his mother, like had nobody in his life essentially. And then a director reached out to him and started talking to him about Padre Pio. And he's like, I think I want to do a movie about Padre Pio. Wow. Are you interested? And he was like, well, I respect this director. In the interview, he talks about like, at first it was just his ego. He's like, okay, well, I can get back on the horse here. I can be Padre Pio.
This is what he said in the interview?
Yeah, in the interview. And he's like, oh, Willem Dafoe's going to be involved. It's an even bigger movie. And not only am I getting back on the horse, it's going to be great. But then the director said, okay, well, I want you to study for this. I want you to he went to San Lorenzo, to monastery. And he said at first he was just living out of the back of his truck. He just parked out there and just lived out of the back of his truck to prepare for the role. And he was sending videos and stuff. But as he goes along, he talks about how his study becomes more and more like personal. He talks about I don't think I've in this clip specifically, but one of the monks had him read the gospel, and he was like, I'd never actually read the gospel.
Wow.
But he talks here about a little bit where he was in his life at that point. So we'll play that one.
All right.
And at the time of my life, like, I didn't want to swim anymore. I had a gun on the table. I was out of here. I didn't want to be alive anymore when all of this happened, okay? Shame like I had never experienced before. Kind of shame, you forget how to breathe. You don't know where to go. You can't go outside and get like a taco. Like, you don't want to go anywhere.
And that's where you are when you're up there reading the gospel and thinking about the plain tide repeal. You're in that state.
Yes, but I'm also in this like, this deep desire to like hold on.
Yeah.
And so I read the gospel with this man, Jude, and I keep hearing like in many different variations of it. I'm not gonna explain the whole gospel here, nor do I need to, it's you. But I keep hearing let go. And to a person who's been gripping so tight for so long, it feels like, it just feels like, it just feels like the right move to let go, like complete surrender for real. And it stops being this like prep of a movie, and it starts being something that feels beyond all that. And I stop sending videos. Like at a certain point with Jude, I just like really fall in. And then I meet these women, Sister Lucia of the Sacred Heart Sisters, who starts really like catechizing me in a very real way, in a very like, let's go through it, let's talk about it, paragraph by paragraph, falling into this group. And I'm living there. So I'm taking showers in there, and I'm eating with them, and we're hanging out. And
they're drawing you into the Christian, the Catholic thing. They're kind of drawing you into the gospel, into a certain way of life.
But more than that, it's not even like they're drawing me into like laughter. They're like sharing jokes with me. It's like we're just like hanging out. And I'm eating their ice cream, and I'm eating them out of house and home, and I'm filling the tacos back up. But like I'm really like, they're not asking nothing of me. They're not asking me to sign nothing. They're not asking me to do nothing or take pictures. I'm just like sitting around, and I'm petting their cats, and I'm hanging out, you know?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I think it just seems like a really, because at first, of course, I'm like super skeptical, you know, following, there's a lot of stuff that happened in like during COVID and during after Trump got elected, that there's just a lot of things that's like, just seems like pure like craziness from Shia.
Oh, really?
And then seeing this after, I'm very skeptical of like, you know, and like the Kanye conversion thing, it just seems like a lot of instability sometimes. But then watching this interview, I think there is, and just hearing stuff like that, I think that it's super unique for him, and I can imagine for a celebrity, to just have that experience of being in a monastery and having been in a monastery. It's like they don't want anything from you. This is like, that's probably really refreshing to be around people who don't care that he's famous, things like that.
Yeah, I got a few thoughts because I haven't seen this before. The first is how important it is for us Catholics to have charity to our brothers and sisters when they sin. And I'm sorry for the times that I haven't done that on this podcast, you know, where maybe I've called out people's stuff and in an uncharitable way. Like, I think if something's public, if something's in the public domain, other people have a right to comment on it in the public domain as well. Like, if I record a video and I say something that someone finds objectionable, I don't think they necessarily need to contact me first before responding to it publicly. If I say it privately, then I think they ought to do that. Okay, but I just, we have to have so much charity. Like, I don't know anything about this fella, but you could imagine what would it be like for him if when he was getting dumped on after having done, apparently, I don't know, certain things that were shameful and evil, you know, if all these Christians started like piling on him instead of extending a hand of mercy, you know, that would have just sort of prevented him perhaps, or pushed him further away. And I got actually a story about this. This happened to me. I was just in Mankato, Minnesota for my sister's wedding reception here in America. A crazy thing happened. So we are right on right by this big public university campus. I forget what it's called. But I went to that coffee shop, Caribou Coffee. All right. So I'm exhausted and I walk down there and I'm sitting in this couch and I'm just looking around and, you know, there's this young woman there, you know, and I got to be honest, like, I feel that when I'm not good with our Lord and I don't trust in his love and affection to me, when I don't trust in his providential care that all will be well, I start to get nervous. I start to get scared. And when I get scared, I become more and more judgmental. It's like I have to order the world around me because I don't trust there's anybody around me to do it. And so I take it upon myself to sort of say who's in and who's out in my own head. So like a lot of judgment when I see people who are dyeing their hair purple and blue to look like anime characters and ripped jeans that are so ripped it feels like, you know, there's so little fabric on them. And I get angry. Like, not angry, but just like, I don't know, like cynical or just like, this is friggin' ridiculous. Like, and I'll just, my head just starts talking like that all the time. Instead of looking at someone and seeing them as a beloved daughter or a beloved son of God. Now, obviously, we should make judgments about things, and it might be objectively sad if somebody is dressing in a particular way that might be immodest. But how come I don't look at these people or look at somebody and say, like, here's a beloved child of God who may not know her dignity or he may not know his dignity. Like, look upon them with love, right? So anyway, I'm sitting in this coffee shop and I'm looking at this girl and I look down at what she's reading. And guess what she's reading? The Porn Myth. My book! Isn't that wild?
That's wild. No way.
She's got my book in front of her and there's a little yellow sticker on it which signaled to me that this was a university book, that she was reading this for university. And that was in fact the case. So I went up to her and I'm like, hi, I wrote that book. And it's so funny because I would never just go up to a random stranger, but I was so like, what is happening right now? So I walked over and I'm like, hey, that I wrote that book. And then trying not to be creepy, I was like, hey, see my photos on the back. Like, I'm not just pretending to write porn books in Minnesota coffee shops. Like, I actually did write that book. And it was cool because she opened it up and she showed me how much she had highlighted and said that she was enjoying it. And that was just beautiful. Like, first of all, how cool is that there's a public university in Minnesota that's mandating that people read my book, The Porn Myth. And I spoke to somebody else in Minnesota who they said, yeah, they were assigned this book in class, and that it was interesting to see people's reaction from the beginning to the end. Because at the beginning, they were rather kind of critical of my work, but then many of them came around and saw the points that I was making. So I was like, thank you, Lord. What a blessing.
That's awesome.
But then secondly, how about not being so judgmental? How about looking at people with sympathy and kindness? And anyway, that's the first thing that I thought of when we see this fella, is just to love on folks and take a break from criticizing them. Second thing is how fantastic Bishop Robert Barron is. I mean, Jordan Peterson's wife said, Jordan Peterson said of his wife that she has begun praying the rosary daily, thanks to Bishop Robert Barron. And it seems like Barron has that approach. Like, he tends to be kind of compassionate and with people. I don't see him online slamming folks or calling out people, and so that's beautiful. Third thing I would say is I'm always like reluctant to celebrate anybody's conversion when they're in the limelight, not because I don't want to like celebrate their conversion. That's something to celebrate, but because I've put, I think Catholics tend to put too much emphasis on celebrity Catholics who then just disappoint them. So like Jim Gaffigan makes a big deal about being a Catholic, but then he'll say things that are, or appear to say things that are openly in contradiction with the Catholic faith. So I think we should look to the saints, not to Hollywood celebrities. But we should still, I think, rejoice that this has taken place. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my thoughts. It's people are like, oh, I hope it's a sincere conversion, and my thought is that's a good thing to hope for his sake as a human. Like, but I think that if you're expecting it to be like I don't know, even when people talk about like Peterson and his conversion, it's like,
has he had?
Do you want him to be? No.
Okay.
That didn't happen.
I didn't know if something happened in August.
But my thoughts when people talk about that is, do you want that for his sake or for like,
or your team's sake?
Yeah, your team's sake. It's not like a team game thing. I think as love for the person and watching this interview, I think he really does have a sincere, beautiful conversion, but I wouldn't like expect any glory for you personally from that. You know what I mean? Or from like the team. I would just say that's good. This is a good thing. And it's a good reminder to be less kind of judgmental of people in the public sphere, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome.
So another thing that happened though is he was on this interview and he said something that made a lot of people excited in the, more traditional community of, which is he likes the traditional Latin Mass.
Okay.
And I don't want to get too far into this because then you get into controversy, but Latin Mass affects me deeply.
Oh, can you pause? Can I pause this?
Yes.
Do I press the space bar? Or you do?
I just
First of all, the fact that he said, I don't want to get too far into controversy, shows that he's got his finger on the pulse as to the conversation going on within the church today, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he just entered oblivious. So that's a good sign.
That's the impression that this whole interview gives. Is he talks about like being excited to receive communion the first time before he had and things like that. Like this
beautiful.
You know, it's not fake. It's not like a front. But yeah.
How come?
Because it feels like they're not selling me a car. And when I go to some Mass with the guitars and stuff, and I'm from, Santa Ynez, right? So that's where I was catechized. And there's a lot of guitar playing. And there's a lot of like what feels like they're trying to sell me on an idea.
Yeah.
Whereas what I feel when I went to Oakland and went to like, and by the way, there's a very incredible version of that as well. That's super activating and very emotional that I've experienced up there with Father Bobby. There's
He's talking about the Novus Ordo?
Father Peter.
Is that what he meant?
Yeah,
There's
he's talking
also
about Novus
this-
Order.
Something.
And just before this, he's talking about Bishop Barron was asking him about like what it's like to be an actor, and he starts talking about how like he tries to be like activating to activate people. So whenever he says activating, it's like, and then because how they get talking about the masses, he says, I feel like the right of the role of the priest is to kind of activate,
Yeah.
the worship, activate the.
I want to say something about Bishop Barron here. Like, I know that he gets a lot of flack online, but the fact that he followed up with him and wanted him to say more about his experience of the Latin Mass, I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, again, I think people are overly critical of the good bishop at times. But look, like how many, I imagine this has got like 1 million views or something by now, has it? It doesn't matter.
But yeah, probably.
But I mean, the fact that you've got millions of people hearing about his experience of the traditional Mass is huge. And that he followed up with him and said, tell me about it, or how. Yeah. Cool.
Christ the King in Oakland does a Latin Mass every day of the week. And it feels like it's not being done to sell me on anything. And it feels almost like I'm being let in on something very special. And the quiet, it activates something in me where it feels like I found something. It's a little bit like a band. When a band is pushed on you, it doesn't feel the same way as you finding it. When you find it, then you root for it. It feels like this special thing that you found, and you protect it, and you hold it, and it's yours. When somebody's selling me on something, it somehow takes it kills my aptitude for it and my suspension of disbelief and my yearnings to root for it.
I get it.
There's an immediate rebellion in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was kind of all he said about that? That's interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. I don't know if there's anyone under the age of 40 that's like, no, let's totally bring back guitars. Let's get the tambourine back at all.
It reminds me of what you said multiple times on the show before, which is that it's just the Novus Ordo is kind of like there's not that much tradition there. It's like vacuous versus like being let in on the secret is kind of like this true culture of like beautiful liturgy that you feel robbed of once you.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to kind of impugn the Novus Ordo per se of that, but certain certain variants of it certainly do that. But you know what? I have to say, like, this month has been really great. This past August, I got the Magnificat, which has like the morning and evening prayers as well as the Novus Ordo readings for the day. And yeah, my wife and I have just been praying together, just very simply sitting in our chair, drinking our coffee, reading the readings, going to daily mass, like going to Franciscan with the praise and worship music. And I thought to myself, like, there's enough here to become a saint, like. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't want a beautiful liturgy, but I think sometimes it's like people who would talk constantly about what's the best diet, but they themselves don't eat properly. We can fall into that trap where it becomes a sport to point out what's lame and hokey and what's reverent and beautiful instead of like really praying. And I don't know, that just occurred to me. Like if I'm tempted to think, look at this sort of pallid mass, it's like, well, yeah, but you're also a pallid individual, and there's enough here to revitalize you and to make you a saint. So if that doesn't happen, you won't be able to get to heaven and say, well, it was because of the Novus Ordo, Yeah. And again, that's not an excuse to have a sloppy liturgy. But I mean, the fact is, there's a lot of people who don't live where there is a Latin Mass. And sometimes my fear is when we keep extolling the Latin Mass and poo-pooing the Novus Ordo, which I hope I don't do, what do you want people to do then? It's like we have no control over this, or very little control, if none. And so I think attending your Mass, wherever you are, if it's your only option, just faithfully and reverently and trusting that the Lord's going to speak to you through that. But anyway.
Yeah, it does remind me, I think his band, what would you call that? Like analogy is interesting. Because to me, I feel like I encounter a lot of like, maybe more in high school, but people who would like listen to a band because it's the cool band to listen to.
Yeah.
And then you get the sense of like, do you even like this music? Do you actually care about the actual music? And that's like a poor allegory.
I do like that. This idea that it's not pushed on you, that you're being led into something.
So that's all we have.
Actually, you know what's interesting, just real quick, that is reminiscent of what he said earlier about the people he was with on the movie set not pushing anything on him. And there is something about that in the Latin Mass. It's like, you can be here and you're welcome. It's not like, please come. It's not like that. And I think there's something about that that's really attractive.
Yeah, right. Just to clarify, though, that's not the movie set. This is before he's preparing that he's
okay.
But
thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarifier.
Okay, cool. Well, next
all right, what do we got next?
Next up is we had, while you were gone, there was an announcement that Biden has a project to cancel student debt.
Really?
So I don't know if you've heard about it. Have you
I
not
heard about that yesterday, but only in passing.
So just a quick overview, and this is one of the controversial ones, even among like I guess our demographic, because some people are for, some people are against.
Yeah.
So it's basically just, it'd be about $1,000 of debt relief for the normal person, and then if you have a Pell Grant, which is a like poverty granted educational grant that the government gives out, then you could get up to $20,000 of debt relief. And just to clear up before, we're going to watch a...
Maybe put it up there so people don't get confused that we have Barron here.
JD Vance, I know that you are...
Here, we'll watch this in a second.
Oh, just so everybody knows, JD Vance was going to come on my show.
Oh, cool.
But he only wanted to he didn't want to speak a lot. I got the impression from his people they didn't want to speak a lot about his faith, and it was more of like a elect me, so that's why I didn't want him on the show. But I liked the movie on Netflix about his life. That's all I know about him. But
what's the movie called? I haven't heard of that.
I forget. But there was a show on Netflix about his life, and it was beautiful.
Cool. Well, I won't talk too much. I personally disagree with what they say here because I don't think. Just to clarify, lay the groundwork here. So Fox News says $300 billion. I'm sure that math lines up. The idea is this money was granted by the government. To my knowledge. So like when you get a student loan, you get it from the government, and then they pay these institutions, right? So that money goes towards the school over the course of paying tuition, right? Now, having left school, all the individuals owe money to the government.
After they leave, even though they've got the grant?
The grant is just it's just that you don't have to pay this back.
But then but if they get like a loan from the government, essentially?
So normal student loan, the way it works is you get money that has to go towards your education.
Yeah.
And then that goes towards tuition. That's all paid. And then the school has pocketed that money.
Right.
And now you pay that back to the government.
Okay.
Right. So the only transaction that's left over for the loan is you have to pay the government the leftover money.
Okay.
Right. And so the loan forgiveness would just be, well, you don't have to pay the government anymore. You owe us these debts. They're going to be forgiven. Why that's criticized here is because that's less federal income.
Okay.
That's a $300 billion, I think, yearly reduction of income. So that's the same as like a $300 billion tax cut.
And where does that money come from?
Well, it'd be the students paying back their debts.
Yeah, but where does the relief come from?
Oh, it's just the Federal Reserve.
Which comes from where?
Well, that's the thing is it's like they're owed money and then they just say you don't have to pay that back anymore. So it's money out of the students' pockets that they wouldn't give back to the government.
Right, but isn't the money getting paid from by the taxpayers to cover for this?
Well, it's more just like it was income that they were expecting to get from people.
Okay.
And then now that's going to be lacking. So if they want to have the same amount of income, then they'll have to come up with $300 billion somewhere else. But that's kind of a different conversation.
Ooh, all right.
So a little complicated, but it's basically just just the groundwork because some of the things they say here don't really make sense when you take it into account.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, we'll play it. We'll start from the beginning though.
Right. JD Vance, I know that you are very concerned about student loan debt. Any person looks at the numbers is this the way to address it?
Tucker, I just think he's terrific.
No, it's certainly not, Tucker. I mean, you hit the nail on the head that this is effectively a bailout for a super corrupt educational system. The Harvard endowment has $60 billion. The Yale endowment has $40 billion. If you want to give student debt relief, you should penalize the people who have benefited from this very corrupt system, not ask plumbers in Ohio to subsidize the life decisions of college-educated young people, primarily young people who are going to make a lot of money over the course of their lifetime anyway. So no, this is exactly the wrong way to do it. And again, if you give this bailout to these university administrators, they're going to keep doubling down on what they've done, which is effectively indoctrinating our kids, not educating them, not giving them useful skills for the job market, but indoctrinating them and getting a massive windfall from Joe Biden in the process. It's really, really corrupt, and it's going to make that corrupt system live even longer.
I just don't understand why Republicans don't say anything about this. Everybody understands that students are so crippled by debt they can't begin adult lives, okay? That's a real problem, and we should not deny it. But the people who caused the problem, who benefited from the problem, who defrauded these students, are not paying. Like, why is it so hard for Republicans to say, hey, Yale, it's time for you to pay reparations to your students?
Not only are they not paying, Tucker, they're actually being rewarded by this policy, and that's what makes it such a huge mistake. And I got to say, Tucker, there is a political dimension to this. Of course, I'm running against Tim Ryan, Democrat from Ohio, who's been on every side. He's flip-flopped on every side of this student debt issue. But if you think about this, 2 months before the election, Joe Biden has given a massive windfall to Democratic Party donors. It's one of the reasons why I'd encourage people to help us fight back at jdvance.com.
Nice.
But this has very direct implications for the middle class in this country. Tucker, you know as well as anybody that if you look behind a lot of our bad policies, whether it's the student bailouts, the globalization, moving stuff to China, whatever you want to say, it's very often a massive transfer of wealth from middle-class, hardworking people to the upper class in this country. That's exactly what this is, a massive bailout for people who've made bad decisions and are doing very well economically. When I say that, I mean the college administrators, of course. It's hard
So
to
bored.
imagine a worse policy.
That's about the core of it.
You know, in Australia, I don't know if things are different these days, but when I graduated high school, I would say maybe 30 to 50% of people went to university. Most other people went and got a trade. It wasn't like it is here. And there's something in Australia, or there was, called a HEX debt, where the government gives you a loan, and after university, depending on how much you make, you start paying that loan back. And if you make more, you pay more. So there's like a percentage. Whether that's good or not, I don't really care about. But I remember coming to America and being shocked at how much debt people had. Like $100,000 in debt or something like that. And it was like a lot of friends of mine.
Yeah.
I just think maybe people should stop going to university. I'm kind of like that with my kids. If they bring up university, I'm like, why would you do that?
Well,
I mean, unless there's a compelling reason to go, but just to go to have an experience seems like.
I think that to go to have an experience is a terrible idea. I think that the argument to be had is there's nowhere else that you can really get the credentials, at least no clear path, I guess, because you can learn all kinds of ways. But to get the credentials of like something complicated, like I wouldn't want someone building our bridges who's never been to, who's like figured it out on his own.
But that's what I mean. Like if you've got a compelling reason to go, then terrific. Yeah. But to just go for the sake of going. I mean, what's great about Franciscan University of Steubenville is it's this amazing environment in which people are peer pressured to be holy. You know, you go to daily mass and it's packed to the gills and there's all sorts of wonderful things taking place. But yeah. But it is interesting because when I moved to America, I remember feeling like really, I don't know, like self-aware of that I didn't have a degree. I ended up getting a degree and a master's later on, but I don't know, like maybe I wouldn't have even done that. It probably just came out of like this fear that I wasn't good enough because everyone in America had a degree. But anyway, cool. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have anything. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about that?
I mean, just that I think that the idea of like your reaction to why do people owe this much debt? I've heard before. I'm not that into politics here, but I've heard that the idea is that if the government gives people these easy loans, that makes the school ask for more, that makes the loans more, that makes the schools ask for more. So it's built up to this point, and that's why it's crazy like that. And it should be, you know, if you're into trying to fix that, the way to fix that would be like, why are we paying so much? Anyway.
Cool.
But yeah, that's pretty much that. Okay.
All right. No, thank you.
So that happened.
All right,
I
that
personally
happened.
am excited
Sweet.
as a student, but
Yep.
I guess that's bias. Okay, here we go. So then you'd heard on Joe Rogan.
What's this CEO of Korn?
Seth Dillon. Oh, that's the last one. Don't worry about that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I had heard that Joe Rogan got into a back and forth about abortion.
I think,
but I haven't seen it. So, and this was with the guy from Babylon
Yeah,
Bee?
Seth Dillon, the founder of the Babylon Bee.
All right, let's do it.
And it's really interesting. I'd say watching this, it's what I think is so interesting is just listening for like, I guess, moral relativism and like how the conversation's being steered.
Okay.
It's really interesting to me.
Problem with someone like Elizabeth Warren's...
sorry. For context, they start in here talking about the Elizabeth Warren trying to close down pregnancy centers.
Say that again.
So there was some... This wasn't a big thing.
Oh,
but I think
yeah.
it's way old at this point. But
During the
Warren,
Roe versus Wade overturning, there was all those pregnancy centers defaced. Is that what you're referring to?
No. So Elizabeth Warren, some political movement, I don't know too much about, of people trying to close down pregnancy centers.
Oh my gosh.
Which is absurd.
How disgusting is that?
But they start talking about pregnancy centers and then that goes into this conversation.
Okay.
So
that you should shut down a place that has an ideology that millions and millions of people believe in, that life is sacred, and that that this is somehow an assault on a woman's right to choose whatever her decision may be. They're worried about other influencers. They're worried about pressure.
You're not even allowing
people
for a choice. If you shut down the alternative,
you're right.
What's the choice?
You're right. And that's where I'm pretty absolute when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And not just free speech
coming
amongst
up is the part that
every
was like the
subject,
headline.
not just amongst a woman's right to choose or abortion laws.
Yeah.
And this idea that you can't have someone who is a Christian who talks to another
This is just
person who's
kinda
a
context
Christian,
deleting.
Yeah, that's
and maybe
fine.
they were on the fence about something, and you convince them to have a child, and it's the best decision they have ever made in their life, and they love their kids so much they couldn't imagine they were thinking about getting an abortion.
Right.
That's real too.
Yeah.
That's real too. There's also women who have been raped who should not have to fucking carry some rapist baby. There's women who have been sexually assaulted before the age
Sorry
of
if the
14.
F-bomb people.
There's
They're
also,
supposed to-
hold on though.
But hold on.
There's
don't stop
also,
me.
you're
okay.
That's real too.
There's
And we all have to agree.
Well, I'm gonna go back
We have to
because it's
agree on
interesting,
both of
this
those.
conversation.
14.
There's
that are
also,
supposed to-
hold on though.
But hold on.
There's
Don't stop
also-
me.
okay.
That's real too.
There's-
And we all have to agree. We have to agree on both of those things.
There are also, though, I'm not going to argue with you on that point, but I will say there are people who have been born of rape and are alive right now and are pro-life, and they go around speaking, talking about
That's
how I
great.
had a right to live, and they will go out there and make an argument.
Just pause it
pro-life
for a
case.
sec. I don't know who this guy is, but I love how relaxed he is. Because Joe gets pretty heated when he's up against somebody he disagrees with, and I don't know if I could sit there with the same kind of composure. Keep going.
They're born of a rape.
You don't have a right to tell a 14-year-old girl she has to carry a rapist baby.
I'm just saying that.
don't.
I'm just
Do you
saying that's
understand what
real
you're
too.
saying?
Yeah, I understand. What you're
Do
saying.
you understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the right to tell my 14-year-old daughter she has to carry her rapist baby. You understand
to
that?
look that woman in the eye who was the born
listen,
of a rape.
do you understand that? That's a 14-year-old child.
I
If
know.
a 14-year-old child gets raped, you say
So
that
this is-
they have
this
to carry
is,
that baby?
This is this is both an appeal to emotion and ad ignominium, an appeal to shame. I want to see how he handles that.
Yeah.
I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't think
That's
murder.
not-
I don't think
think that's
murder is an
wrong.
answer to. I don't think murder fixes a rape.
What
Ooh,
if
very
we're
good.
talking about an abortion when the fetus, literally it's like 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 days? What if she just turned positive just now?
I
Positive for
understand that
pregnancy.
fetus is the
I just
technical term for an unborn human, like a human fetus. But there is a kind of, this is what we do when we kill something that we know we shouldn't kill, or we're afraid we shouldn't kill it, is we depersonalize the thing and give it this name, fetus.
Later on, Seth objects to Joe Rogan using the clump of cells phrase. So
What if it just happened
That
today?
you can like draw a line on when.
You can't.
Like, once
so
life
you
has
can't
begun.
do
I don't
at
think you
the
draw
very
lines.
moment. Like if someone came inside of someone and they cracked the egg, and then bam, they took Plan B. You shouldn't do that.
Well, I mean, that's if it's preventing the pregnancy from
No.
occurring. That's different.
It's an abortion. That's what
Yeah.
Plan B is. It makes your body abort the conceived pregnancy. That's what it does.
Is it?
I mean, I'm pretty sure. Let's Google it. I know that women used to do something similar. They would take like a shit ton of birth control
If
pills.
it prevents the conception, it's different than if it's terminating.
No, it's terminating.
Yeah.
I'm 90% sure it's terminating. Okay.
Yeah, it's terminating.
So I put a cut in there. They take a long time to research. Like, there's different kind of pills that do different things, of course. But I think it took me a while to figure out what was going on. But Joe basically, I think, it's another appeal to shame here, where he's trying to say, oh, so people shouldn't even take Plan B because that's really normal for like, you know, a lot of people.
I don't mean to kind of cut in here, but it's like, it's a simple syllogism, right? It's always...
Hold off on that, because that comes up in a second.
Right, okay.
But sorry, just to finish the thought though, that's why they looked this up, is because he's trying to get him to say, oh, well, you know, Plan B is normal, I guess. And he's like, well, that's abortion. So he's like clarifying the issue of no, after conception.
I
think it's really interesting
Plan
they run
B.
into that.
What about RU46? It's the same question. The same question is if someone knows they're pregnant, or if they test positive for pregnancy and they take a pill that can get rid of that, like the day of, you're against that.
I would lay it out like this. I would say, it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human life. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human life. Therefore, abortion is wrong. And I don't think any of the...
Glory to God. Finally, some logic in the discussion. That's it. That's it. Good for him.
Isn't that great to hear on Joe Rogan?
Oh, it's so great. I remember listening to Mitt Romney and whoever his running mate was when they were going up against Obama. The topic of abortion was brought up. And I remember them saying, is it Paul Ryan? Who was the guy who ran? Isn't that funny? Right. This is the glory of the world, people. You could be running for vice president and we'll forget you. But I remember they were saying, well, except for the cases of incest and rape, you know, and I was just so disappointed in that because it is a simple syllogism. Here it is. It's always wrong. And I love what he said too about human life. Notice he doesn't get into the argument of what is a person, because that could have gone right off the rails, especially if Joe was smoking pot. It's always wrong to kill a human life. Abortion kills a human life. Therefore, abortion is always wrong. If you want to dispute that conclusion, which Rogan wants to, you have to take aim at one of the premises. You have to say it's not always wrong to kill human life, or that abortion doesn't kill a human life. Good for him.
Yeah. And then you'll hear in the rest of this, where they ultimately can't keep talking about it, is Joe refuses to put anything forward about when life starts. Okay. He's just like, oh, well, in this one, it seems like it's a baby. In this one, it doesn't. But
okay.
I don't think any of the examples of like, oh, well, how developed is it? You know, can it think? Is it conscious? Can it dream? Can it feel pain?
So for you, it's the moment of conception.
I think that if it's a human life,
when is there a human?
a distinct human life, then I think it's wrong to end its life.
And so you think that do you think that once the conception happens, there's some sort of a miraculous event? Like at the very moment, like you could literally get to the point where the sperm cracks the egg. If you could scoop that egg out right there, would that be abortion?
In the Catholic doctrine a little bit.
I mean, at some point you're going to have to say there was a magic moment that happened, because you believe that we eventually become valuable
when
humans,
is it, Joe?
Right?
Well, listen,
where's the moment where you think the magic happens?
Let me tell you my perspective on this, because I've said this multiple times, but it bears repeating. I think abortion is a very human issue, in that humans we're messy, and it's a very messy issue. It's complicated. Bill Burr has a very good bit about it in his last comedy special.
What about child abuse? Like, what about if a mother or a father decides to kill their child 5 months after it's born? I got a feeling that this is where some of the blue states are going to head to soon, and that's full on infanticide, where we're euthanizing 3-year-olds. But I think most people would agree that that's a disgusting thing, right? That a parent doesn't have the right to kill their child because it was turned out to be conceived in rape, or they've now realized that they're not financially capable of taking care of it. So all we're saying as pro-lifers is don't discriminate, because there's nothing between an unborn human and a born human that changes such that it's okay to kill it in the womb. I mean, it's just where
he says, I agree with your right to choose, but it's also killing a baby.
Right.
You know, and it's a very
I like that bit. It's a good bit.
Fantastic.
He's talking about the oven, you know, baking something in the oven.
When you talk...
So
about like
He's doing
someone
so
who's
well.
at 6 months or 9 months, when that gets crazy. That's like you're literally
That gets
killing a
crazy.
baby. You're killing a baby
Literally.
that could
What do you mean
exist
by
outside the womb.
What if
literally?
rape produced it and it's 8 months old in the womb?
It's a good question. That's also what makes it a very, very messy
It's tough.
conversation.
It's tough.
You know, there was a
It's not.
story
It's
that came out
emotionally
recently.
messy. Like we can all agree that if somebody has been raped and they conceive, then that is obviously an incredibly emotionally difficult thing that I couldn't begin to understand. But the question still remains, is it ever okay to kill a human life? Because if the answer is no, then the conclusion is no, and yet that is a terrible thing that's taken place, and we should punish not the baby, but the person who committed the rape, and we should probably punish that person far greater than we are in this society. Why should the baby be the victim?
So I put a cut in there because they talk for a long time about Joe pulls up an example where he thinks that the abortion was wrong, which is this news story of it's terrible, of a mother poisoning her daughter, like slipping medication to have
Post utero or like inside her?
inside.
Okay.
Yeah. So the daughter has, gives birth to a dead baby because the mother's been poisoning her, and it was a legal thing, news story. But he's focused on, for Joe it sounds like once it's like 20 weeks or something like that,
It
then
looks
it's a
like
big
a
deal
human,
and
so it is
clear
a
and
human.
obvious.
Yeah.
But it's like the whole point is, where's the line? It's
Yeah.
at conception. But yeah, so I just cut that out because I talked about it for a while.
Is that 6 months? What's 29 weeks? That's really long.
So I'm
So
personally,
that's where we're at. That's
Yeah.
that area we were talking about, where it's like this is this weird place where it's like, okay, that's a baby.
Yeah.
This is not like a clump of cells. That's an actual baby.
Right.
That's why it makes it such
Oh.
a crazy issue.
I mean, when you start talking about harmful misinformation, I mean, I'm as you can tell, I'm pro-life.
Yes.
And like so, when we start talking about harmful
Someone buy this
misinformation
man a
and
beer.
the types of things that are considered, like that I say or that we tweet or the jokes that we make that are considered harmful misinformation, I'm like, well, what about calling that baby a clump of cells? I think that's harmful misinformation because then you're encouraging people to kill it like it's nothing when it's actually a human life. It's a developing human life. I think abortion is healthcare the way that rape is lovemaking. If we want to use rape as an example, I think they're
Yes.
opposites. And it's like these are
Yes.
euphemisms that we use. We use
Someone
the
make
word
a bumper
healthcare.
sticker.
We're talking about a procedure that ends an innocent human life, and we're calling it healthcare. That's like calling rape lovemaking.
and this is why it's such a human issue, because I see what you're saying.
What?
And I think that if Christianity
Okay,
had
just
been
pause. I mean, I do want to give him some props. It's a very difficult thing to be challenged on a deeply held belief. It's a very difficult thing, especially when it's on your own show. And so good for him to trying to wrestle with this as well as he can, I think, Yeah. Is there a lot more? Sorry.
I don't think there's too.
I'll stop cutting you off.
the
No,
religion
there's only
other
like
than
30 seconds left.
I mean,
He just talks that we can be done there.
Stop
He just talks
talking
about how like
religion.
he says, well, if this was like a Hindu belief or something like that, people wouldn't like be so quick to, make fun of it and say it's weird because we respect those religions, so and so. But that's just like religious.
Yeah, I don't know if
relativism.
that's true. I think the reason that Christianity is the whipping boy of a post-sexual revolution culture is precisely because it objects to the sexual revolution.
Yep.
And the only religions that are welcome with open arms are those who have essentially nothing to say that would make modern man feel ashamed.
Yeah. So that's that clip.
Okay.
What came to mind watching
God
this?
bless that man.
Yeah.
Well done.
It's just great.
I
to hear.
wonder what the comments must be just out of control on those. I'm
A
sure
lot of the ones I saw were like, this is actually a really measured conversation.
Cool.
Like, good for them for actually talking to each other about
Absolutely.
this.
Absolutely. All right. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And God bless that mate, that man.
At the risk of sounding too scholastic, it reminded me of something in college we read. I think his name was McIntyre.
Yeah.
And his idea was emotivism, which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
rather than actually having philosophical discourse, we give examples to each other to try to elicit an emotional response.
Yeah, or
And
that
that's
our
how we-
condemnation of things we consider immoral amounts to saying abortion boo,
Yeah.
or anti-abortion boo, but there doesn't seem to be logical arguments that are grounded in reality. Yeah. Cool.
So that's that. All right, and then we have next up is this one's not a video. This
Okay.
one's kind of an update, and it's sort of little bit of nuance here.
Okay.
But tell me what your immediate reaction to this.
I'm terrified.
Posted.
I hope it's got nothing to do with Biden. Let's see.
Oh, hold on. It might be the wrong file type. Okay, we'll go on to the next one.
Okay.
Fix this.
Stick around, people. We're going to come back to this thing.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, this one has something to do with Biden.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's
I
a
am
Barron
mightily
talking
tired of
about
the way the president and his
Ooh, what's he doing? Play it.
Yep.
allies use the term impose. Time and again, they say some version of, I'm unwilling to impose my beliefs on others. Now that we've established that opposition to abortion is not a matter of sectarian doctrine, can we also admit that any law, by its very nature, imposes on others? If a majority of federal representatives formulate a piece of legislation to set the speed limit at 65, if the executive agrees with this determination, a law would go into effect imposing this viewpoint on the entire society. The same goes for tax codes, antitrust regulations, minimum wage requirements, civil rights statutes, et cetera, et cetera. Laws don't suggest. They impose. That's their nature. And behind every truly just law, there's some moral principle. Preserving life, establishing greater justice, protecting the poor, fostering the common good, et cetera. So if you were to ask me whether I was working to impose on the entire society a law that would protect the rights of the unborn, I would say yes.
Yes, good.
And then I would add, and what's your point?
Yes.
And finally, can we please put pay to the silly position first articulated by Governor Mario Cuomo 35 years ago, and then tiresomely repeated by far too many Catholic politicians ever
What
since?
a man. Good for
that,
him.
quote,
Go Barron.
I'm personally opposed to abortion, but publicly I support it, close quote. Again, one might make such a distinction in regard to a strictly doctrinal matter, arguing, for instance, I personally believe it's indispensable to attend Mass every Sunday, but I would never dream of sponsoring legislation to that effect.
Right.
Fine. However, since opposition to abortion, as we've just showed, is not a conviction born of dogma, but rather of moral reasoning, it's utterly incoherent to claim that one can hold to the position privately but not defend it publicly.
It's like saying I'm personally against child abuse, right? Or beating my 7-year-old into a bloody
Nicely
pulp.
analogous to someone in the 19th century saying that though he personally finds slavery abhorrent, he'll do nothing to eliminate it or even to stop its spread. It would also be precisely analogous to someone in the mid-20th century saying that, though his personal conviction is that Jim Crow laws are morally repugnant, he will fight publicly to keep them in place. In light of this, can you see why so many Catholics, including your humble scribe here, find the president's statements and actions in regard to abortion so repellent? He claims he objects to abortion, that he considers it morally wrong, and yet time and again, in the most straightforward, even strenuous manner, he strives by word and deed to make it more available, more acceptable, more legally defended. Now, if our current president, convinced as he claims to be that abortion is wrong, were to take steps in the direction of
he would claim
at
that
least
these days.
curtailing the practice, or if he could have found...
So that's I should have maybe put it in or just told you the context. At the beginning of the clip, he talks about Biden's kind of official position is he's like, oh, well, as a Catholic, I believe abortion is wrong.
There is no way he would say that today.
But
there was no way
not.
his script writers would allow him to say that today.
But yeah.
Sorry, continue if you want.
That's just pretty much what he says. Personally, I think it's wrong, but of course I believe in freedom of, whatever.
I want to just throw this out. We have a United States bishop calling the president of the United States to task. I hope to God, and I mean that, I hope to God that the channels like Taylor Marshall and others that criticize Barron have done videos celebrating this. I haven't checked. I would hope that. One thing I was aware of while I was offline is how much of the news that we consume is just outrage media. And I haven't watched the Daily Wire in the last month, but if your whole goal is to point to outrageous things, and I'm not criticizing Daily Wire. I'm glad they exist. I think they help many of us feel less alone. I think they're doing great work and I would support them. But when your whole shtick is look at this outrageous thing, you start to look for outrageous things and hope you don't have a month where nothing outrageous happens or else you don't get clicks. It's tiresome. So I would hope, and I'm not, am I accusing Taylor Marshall of that? I don't think entirely. I suspect he's a good man and a good Catholic and a good father. But let me just say, I would hope that he would have done a video on this where whatever his differences with Barron, he could say, this is a great thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah. It's like the exact counter argument of people who say, like, why don't the bishops say anything? This is a bishop saying something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Positive words to say about the Dobbs decision that at least gives individual states the right to restrict abortion. I might see him then in the mold of Lincoln. But instead, he presses forward, advocating the most radical pro-abortion policy imaginable, seeking to codify into law the Roe v. Wade and Casey decisions that essentially made abortion, up to the moment of birth, a matter of legal impunity in our country. Now, I believe this is precisely why Pope Francis recently referred to the president's position on abortion as incoherent.
Did he?
President Biden speaks often of his Catholic faith, attends Mass
Is
regularly,
that during
prays the
August?
Rosary. I applaud him.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked up the context for that.
Sorry.
I have no reason whatsoever to doubt the sincerity of his Catholicism. But I am sorry to say that in regard to the most pressing moral issue of our time, he stands athwart both the teaching of the Church and right reason.
Go Barron. Man, he's crushing it.
Mm-hmm. Somebody in the chats, John, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
John Schvattel.
Yeah, right there.
Sorry,
says,
mate.
Dr.
Timothy Gordon? I don't think he's a doctor, but Timothy Gordon had some, unless he did that in August, had some positive things to say about Bishop Barron. Yeah, good for Timothy. I think that he tries to be balanced, Tim, even if I disagree sometimes with what he says. He seems like a really fair
I think he does have some kind of doctorate. I don't think he got that in August. Okay. But yeah.
Apologies if he is a doctor and I just stripped him of that title.
So, yeah.
And then what else we got? Is that it?
Well, there was one more thing. I feel bad now that we've talked about outrage.
No, let's do it.
But,
outrage.
Well, this one, it really got negated. I thought it was more outrageous than it was. But
I
what's
had
your
to
immediate reaction to this?
Okay, is this a tweet?
Yes.
So he's back on Twitter?
You can read it.
I had to temporarily delete the tweet that resulted in my banning to do some unassociated necessary house cleaning of my account. But here is a screenshot which I am posting because I said I wouldn't delete it and mean it. Okay, so my initial reaction is it sounds like he's backpedaling and trying to look strong as he does that.
So that's what I thought, and that's why I wanted to prepare this for today. But then I went to go find this tweet, and it's on his account, but you can't see it because it violates the rules of Twitter. And this is the only thing he's posted since he's been off. So he's still off.
Okay, good for him. Yeah. So what happened? Because I got suspended from Twitter for saying essentially the same thing as he did. And when I tried to log back into Twitter, it said, you violated Twitter's whatever. Mm-hmm. And by clicking yes, you agree that you violated our policy. So the reason I thought I could in good conscience click yes is because, sure, I agree that I violated your silly standard, at least in this case. I'm not saying all their standards are silly. Mm-hmm. But if they had have said, by clicking yes, you agree you committed an act of hate speech, then I could never have clicked yes because I didn't commit an act of hate speech. So I think that he'd be justified in going back on Twitter and then using their platform against them, as it were, as Matt Walsh has done. But the fact that he came out so strongly and saying, look, we'll see who cancels who, I would be really would I be really disappointed? No, I wouldn't. I don't think anybody's really disappointed by what they see. I think we just pretend to be. So would I be disappointed? I'd be like, I'd be a little disappointed that he kind of went back on that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like
he actually didn't. Yeah, that's the thing. So,
All right.
So there's that.
All right.
And then that's the last thing other than one more video, which is not as politically charged, which is the CEO of Korn here.
The CEO of Korn.
A video making the rounds. Have you ever seen those videos of the guy who goes around and interviews kids?
No.
So he asked them what's your favorite color, things like that.
Okay.
Silly questions. So this is one of those.
All right, but hey, just before we get to that, I want to let people know that we'll be taking questions from people after this, so stick around and put your question in the live chat and at Pints with Aquinas to make sure we see it.
Yep. So here's...
For me, I really like corn.
What do you like about corn?
Ever since I was told that corn was real, it tasted good.
Did you think corn wasn't real?
But when I tried it with butter, everything changed. I love corn.
I love this kid.
Yep.
Do you think everyone should be eating corn?
No, not everyone has to like it to be the best.
Yeah.
You just have to try it. That's me.
What else are your favorite things?
I play variety of games. Hide and seek,
What a kid.
Double lava monster. Yellow cone. I mean, look at this then. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing.
Oh.
It's cone.
What a boy.
It's corn.
Because cone is awesome.
Can you describe corn to someone who's never tasted it before?
A big lump with knobs. It has to do. It's the part that mostly makes me like the cone.
How much do you think corn should cost?
$1. I hope you very have a fantastic day.
A corntastic day?
Where did he find this kid?
What? It's just a pineapple cone.
Oh, what a smart boy.
If anyone loves cone, if you come to me, I can tell you all about it.
Do you like corn?
No.
Have you ever had corn before?
No.
That's it.
That was absolutely charming and wholesome and beautiful, and a wonderful way to finish what I missed out on in August.
So-
What I love about kids and anyone who's not initiated, what is that?
Finish the thought, but I have a special surprise for you.
This is amazing.
Which is
Okay, cool. Did you actually cook that?
I cooked that this morning for you. So
That's really kind of you.
And you have to eat it on string.
I
At least
have
one
to.
bite. That's
All
the
right.
rules.
Oh my gosh! Thank you very much for this corn. The juicy part. That is my favorite part. Actually, you cooked this really well.
Did I?
Yeah, really
cool. I
well. You
haven't
bought
had a bite
yourself
yet.
one. Good. All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Don't be shy.
Have some more, Matt.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Let's eat it right into. I want everyone to put their earphones in. We're gonna do some Pints with Aquinas ASMR. That'll never happen again, and I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah.
What I love about kids is they don't. It's like they don't have the background knowledge or language to explain something, so they just explain it as simply as they can, and it ends up being super poetic. Like a clump with knobs on it or something. That's wonderful. I was just at as I said earlier, my sister's wedding thing. She got married in Australia, but then they came to Minnesota to hold a bit of a party. And there was this heat lightning in the distance. And my son Peter pulled me over and, Dad, look at that. And I said, yeah, buddy, that's beautiful. And he said this, it looks like the sun is running all over the place. Isn't that cool?
That's cool.
I love kids. That's great. Well, thanks, Neil.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was wonderful. Now what?
Some comments, I guess,
Take
yeah.
some...
Let's see.
Hey, just want to remind people that if you missed the start of the show, me and some friends have bought a cigar lounge in Steubenville, Ohio, to help kind of revivify the town, and it's going to be launched next month. We're currently working really hard on it. There's a link in the description below, also a link to our Instagram page where you can see updates of the progress that we're making, but it's a beautiful space, and yeah, there's that. All right. Is there no questions?
I'm scrolling.
Should I just keep eating corn?
Well, they're probably
Let's go
waiting.
down the bottom. Here we go. Happy Labor Day. See, Neil, I have to apologize. I didn't even know.
I didn't either.
Oh, didn't you? Oh, okay.
Well, I was driving here and it's like, oh, there's not very many cars out. Oh, that's
Yeah,
Labor Day.
Leo's was
that
shut.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we're taking
What
comments.
else?
if anyone wants
Why
to.
would you promote mocking? Okay. Missed you, Matt. Thanks, Livia. Happy Labor Day. Cheers. Do those on Patreon also get the Gill? The Gill. It's pronounced Gill. Yes, absolutely. People on Patreon get the same thing, as by and large, as those on Locals. But the only way to get it is I posted something on Patreon and Locals that asked people to put in their address. If you didn't put in your address, then you wouldn't have got it yet. So after this, I'm going to go pin that to the top of the page on both Patreon and Locals. Make sure you put in your address in that thing. Otherwise, there's no way for us to get it to you. All right, let's see here. Do those on Patreon? Oh, yeah. Any plans for a more Catholic lo-fi in the near future? Yeah, I would like to do that. I think people are aware of this by now that we got demonetized on YouTube because they said that I was using somebody else's content. That was false. I pay someone for the illustrations. I help guide and pay for the music. And so I did a video showing YouTube how I create them, but they said it was still demonetized, which was annoying. These things obviously cost a lot of money to make. If you haven't seen it, go to Catholic Lo-Fi. Just type that into YouTube. I've got 3 videos up right now and 3 different albums. The last one was Lo-Fi meets Gregorian chant. Cool. So if you guys support me on Locals, mattfradd.locals.com, that will ensure that I have funds to be able to do another one. The hope is to do one soon. All right, let's see. If we're on Locals waiting for the beer stein, okay, yeah, so the beer steins are coming in, I think, next month, and then they'll be shipped out at that point. Sorry for the long wait. Everything, I guess, with like COVID lockdowns has slowed everything down. So they took like 3 or 4 months to make more of these gorgeous, beautiful things. Would you be willing to listen to and understand issues that the more traditional Catholics have with Bishop Barron? It goes back to the concept called Novella Theologiae, or the New Theologians. Yeah, I'm open to it, and I've heard the objections.
That being said, I think what you said is valid, that we should absolutely celebrate.
It's kind of like when, I think just whenever a bishop says something that is good and courageous, we need to get behind them and praise them. This is true of Archbishop Cordileone when he told Nancy Pelosi that she could no longer receive Holy Eucharist. No matter what your beef is with Cordileone, if you have one or several, get over it for a second and praise him, because you know what it's like. I mean, it's a lot easier to keep doing something courageous when people are telling you you're doing the right thing. Keep going and cheering you on. So, what else we got? Oh, Pines with Aquinas. When are you guys making an indie video game? That'd be cool. We should totally do that. I listened to... Sorry. No, you're fine. When is Matty Hart coming back on the show? Needs some more prayers in Gaelic. Well, actually, I've got an Irish fella coming on this month. Not Matty Hart, but it'll be a surprise. This fella says, I listen to Emma's album, Search Party, regularly. It's nice to have a Catholic album with a folk feel to it. Yeah, so my sister, by the way, just started a record label with her husband called... I think it's Enemy Friend Love. If you go to my YouTube channel in the community section, go to my YouTube.
This one.
Yeah, and you'll have to get out of there if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in the community section, this is a video of me singing at my sister's wedding. If people are interested, we're singing "Breakfast in America" by Supertramp. My sister's playing the drums, and her new husband David, who's awesome, is singing and playing guitar. Their new record label is called Enemy Love Records. Click that for me, would you? Enemy Love Records, because I want people to go subscribe to her, because they're doing amazing work. David actually gave me a CD of Enemy Love Records, and I have to say I was not expecting it to be fabulous. I was thinking, no, this would be good. You know, my friend, my brother-in-law wrote an album. That's great. I listened to it. I was absolutely blown away. So go follow my sister and my brother-in-law's new YouTube channel, Enemy Love Records. We'll put that in the description whipshy belowy woey.
Putting that in there now.
Nice. What? Pints with Aquinas, what do you all think of Andrew Tate and his... I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
Okay. Soren...
Sorry.
No, you can't know that I'm about to read. You're fine. Soren has made me Catholic in the first place, but I don't agree with everything. All right. I know what that means. Oh, any plans with Capturing Christianity coming up? Yeah, I just spoke to him yesterday or 2 days ago, and I said he needs to come on the show again, so we'll try to make that happen. I live alone. How do I motivate myself to go to church? Growing up, I always went with my family. Kind of hard as a single guy to show up. Yeah, well, one of the nice things about being Catholic is no one's going to greet you at the door. It's like an introvert's dream. Trent Horn talks about going to these Protestant places where people are very friendly and welcome you, and it scares him. And he's like, I just want to slip in and no one notice me. Well, that's probably what's going to happen at a Catholic Mass, because it's not about us so much as it is about God. I mean, it is about us as well, but it's about God first and foremost. So I would just encourage you to show up. You know, maybe search some local Catholic parishes near you, see one that you think looks the most appealing, and just show up and sit in the back. And, you know, as Catholics, we're obliged to attend Holy Mass on Sundays and days of obligation. So don't be afraid. Do it. Did you happen to read Island of the World? Did I? Who wrote that?
I don't know what that is.
Did I? I like that I asked you that. Island of the World. That book is familiar. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so is this the fella, Landon, are you the fella who gave me the book? Island of the World. It's by Michael O'Brien.
Oh, I see.
I read the first few pages and think he's terrific, but I'll be honest, I didn't finish it. Yeah. Fahrenheit 80. I don't know if it's called 80. It's Fahrenheit something. I think he's referring to that.
It's not Fahrenheit 80. It's like Fahrenheit 451 or something.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe that's not what he's referring to. Have you ever learn about Catholics in Indonesia? No, but I can say bake saja if that appeals to you in any way. Joshua Cole says, hey, Matt, if you really want to know the true origins of the culture we have today, you should read Architects of the Culture of Death. All right, sweet. Thank you.
Somebody earlier asked, what was the best thing you did during the month off? I guess you kind of already talked about some of the things
I did.
I'll pull it up.
I'll tell you this. When I go to work, like I show up at the studio, you know, I'm checking emails, I'm writing to you and to Melanie and to my marketing team, and I'm scheduling interviews, and I'm, you know, trying to stay up on things. And I go home from work, and what often happens, and it scares me when it does, is my wife will say to me, hey, what'd you do today? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like, it's just a sandstorm inside of my brain. And at first, I'm afraid I actually did nothing. That's how kind of overwhelmed I feel. And then I'm like, oh no, and I think about it more, and I realize there's 100 things that I did, but I did them with such a frantic energy that I don't remember them so quickly. But one thing I loved about this month off is every day was so simple, you know? So if you're like, what did you do today? I woke up, I remember having a coffee, I prayed on the porch, I went to Holy Mass, I got the dog's haircut, I came home, I read The Hobbit to the kids. Like, it's all very clear to me, and I like that a lot. I really like that. I don't know if you've ever heard of this analogy about, you know, it was in a homily once. Someone held up a jar, and they said, okay, in front of me I have sand, pebbles, and big stones. The sand represents the trivial things we do every day. The pebbles represent the not-so-trivial things we do, and the stones represent the meaningful things we do. And he says, if you fill your jar up with sand, that represents your life, just trivial things, there'll be no room for meaningful things. But if you put the rocks in first, there's then room for the pebbles, and there's then room for the sand. And I kind of felt like I was doing things right this month, where I was putting first things first, and by God's grace, I'll continue to do that, you know. Let's see. Oh, that's the question. What's the best thing you did during? Yeah, good. Yeah.
This one.
Your main point is missing the point. You can't love someone you just let get. I have no idea.
I think they're arguing with each other in the comment section. But above that, this one. Did you?
Oh yes, put this one up. So, Father Jason, I had him on the show recently. He wants to build a church to honor the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and this person is asking for an update. Well, things are moving along, actually, and maybe quicker than you think, so I will have Father Jason on the show soon to kind of give you guys an update about this and where you can donate if you want to.
Cool.
Deborah name of my mum, Deborah. What was it easier to take this last month off from the internet than last time? Is it getting easier each year? It's like the same every year. Actually, I think it was about June that I said to a friend of mine here, Rob Pretzel, I said, I don't know if I'm going to take the whole month off. I might just take like 3 days a week off or something like that. And he said, why? And I realized I had no good reason, so I just chose to do it again. Will you be interviewing Matthew Kelly at some point? I don't know. Maybe. Hey, we have a big interview on aliens this Thursday. Do you know that?
Oh.
Neil? Paul Thigpen, Dr. Paul Thigpen's coming in the show. He's written a whole book on UFOs, and it's going to be a very interesting show. So people should show up for that.
I'm interested in that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people talking to each other.
Okay. Well, guys, this has been really fun. If you want to support the work we're doing at Pints with Aquinas, go to mattfradd.locals.com and become a supporter. When you do, you get a bunch of free things in return. One thing we're going to have releasing, let's say next week, is the beginning of this 7-part video teaching series from Dr. Ed Fazer on the 5 ways of Thomas Aquinas. It's going to rock your world. You'll get access to that when you become a supporter. You'll also get these beautiful, beautiful news. Well, it's more of a newspaper. And I've decided we're going to make it even thicker next time round. And you get this for free when you become a supporter, an annual supporter on Locals. We have articles and poetry and an article from Thomas Aquinas. We even have, not that you can see this, but we have Catholic crossword puzzles and Catholic cartoons that we commission, and it's really great. And again, if you live in New Zealand, we'll pay for the shipping. You just have to become a supporter over on mattfradd.locals.com. When you do, you get a bunch of free stuff, including that. So I hope that's a nice little perk. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And see you later. Thanks a lot, Neil. Appreciate it. Thanks for the corn.